everything that you need. If you need it, oh, God's got it. God's got everything that you need. Well, if you need it, oh, God's got it. God's got everything that you need. Well, He's got everything that a poor boy needs. All right, well, it's money. God's got it. God's got it. God's got everything that you need. If it's that money, God's got it. God's got it. God's got everything that you need. Well, if it's money, oh, God's got it. God's got it. God's got everything that you need. Well, He's got everything that a poor boy needs. All right. It's a friend. God's got it. God's got it. God's got everything that you need. If it's a friend, God's got it. God's got it. God's got everything that you need. Well, it's a friend. God's got it. God's got it. God's got everything that you need. Oh, He's got everything that a poor boy needs. All right, oh, God's got it. 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 He's got it. God's got it. He's got it. God's 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 got it.
Blood will flow and flesh and steel are one, dried in the colors of the evening sun. Tomorrow's rain will wash the pain away, but something in our minds will always stay. On and on the rain will fall, like tears from the stars, like tears from the stars. On and on the rain will say how fragile we are. Well, friends, thank you for joining us at our intimate, humble gathering. And tonight, we'd like to share a secret with you. A sacred secret that must be kept strictly between us. To be honest, it's a secret which cannot be told, for it cannot be understood or even experienced, but only birthed within us and lived through us. Nonetheless, this evening has been a futile but necessary attempt to place this sacred secret into some kind of language. For language is the only messenger we know, fallen angel though it may be. My first encounter with this secret happened a number of years ago while I was walking home late one evening. As I weaved my way through the half-dead trees that inhabited a piece of wasteland between my origin and my destination, I heard a voice, an inner voice, calling my name. I stood still and listened intently to what I took to be nothing less than the solemn, silent voice of God. As I stood there rooted to the ground, God spoke to me repeating 4 simple words. I do not exist. I do not exist. What could this possibly mean? One thing for sure was that it couldn't be simple atheism, because it was God who was claiming God's very non-existence. In that wasteland, I was confronted with something different. I was confronted with the deletion of God by none other than God. Up until then, I'd considered God to be just one more thing in the world, albeit the greatest. But after this event, I wondered whether this was an inappropriate way of approaching God. Perhaps God ought not to be thought of as an object in the world, but rather as that which transforms my interactions with all objects in the world. What if I was being taught that every time I affirm God, I simultaneously affirm something less than God? And what if this God I affirm is always a delusion formed from the materials of my imagination and my desires? What if one of the steps towards God rests upon a rejection of God? And thus, what if God ought not to be thought of, not as that which I affirm, but rather as the event which causes me to make the affirmation in the first place? And so I began to wonder if it was possible to think of God otherwise than being a nothing. To think of God as speaking, as happening, as an event, as life, but not as an object. To approach the God beyond, behind, and before God. If this is the case, then God ought not to be thought of as a patch of meaning which covers the wound of our own knowing. God is the wound itself. The wound which inspires the industries that make the patch. If this is the case, then God is not to be located in the fabrics of our beliefs, but rather as the holes within the fabrics. We must clothe ourselves in our creeds, for they shelter us. But these creedal garments, if we are truly to honor them, must eternally be allowed to unravel and be reformed. For they testify to God not by their concreteness, but by their kinetic, fluid life. If this is the case, then fidelity to our creeds and our God will involve betraying them. We have thought often that the cross is the one thing upon which we must be crucified, and that that is the highest call of Christianity. But what, my friends, if we are asked to go further? What if the cross that we must carry is like the cross carried by Simon of Cyrene? A cross not for ourselves, but rather for that which we love more than ourselves. What if the highest call of Christianity involves crucifying our God precisely for the sake of our God? I'm going to invite you to learn a song and sing it with me. It's by Bruce Coburn. It's called Mystery. You can't tell me there is no mystery, mystery, mystery. You can't tell me there is no mystery. It's everywhere I turn. Can't tell me